This is Disclosure Now with Arkheim and Brian Tseng, a show where we expose the truths that are nefariously hidden from humanity. Today we welcomed Tyler Kiwala of Journey to Truth and talked about his experiences that have made him question reality and begin to perceive a hidden world that exists all around us.
Welcome to Disclosure Now with Arkheim and Brian Tseng. This is a special show today. This is the first show I'm doing with my with Brian, and we're going to be co-hosting together forward. And we've got Tyler Kiwala from Journey to Truth with us. He really doesn't need any introduction. Like, I'm sure if you're watching my show, you probably know who he is. But basically, his channel, Journey to Truth, is getting the truth out there, getting the disclosure movement out there. They have their conference every year, Journey to Truth Conference. It's held in Grafton, Illinois every year. Now, sure, we'll talk about that a little bit. And just thank you for coming on our show, Tyler. It's really an honor to have you aboard.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've been kind of waiting to be invited on a show to talk about some of this stuff. The right platform. I've been on other shows and no one knows the right questions to ask because they're not involved in the programs or they're not whatever. I don't even know what I'm actually involved in, but you guys understand it. So I'm excited because you're going to be asking the good questions and I have some stuff that I just like to share and get off my chest, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're really glad to give you that opportunity. I mean, it's definitely an honor to give you the chance to speak about some of the experiences you've had that, you're so busy interviewing other people that people are probably excited to, people probably want to know. So, is there anything you want to say, Brian?
Yeah. About the secret space programs in particular, Tyler, it was you on Journey to Truth with Aaron interviewing Tony Rodriguez in particular. And I believe Penny Bradley somewhere in there. But those two interviews in particular, and then me going to Contact in the Desert this year, down in Southern California and meeting people who have testimonies in real life and getting to see that. And this particular phrase, 20 and back, that's what really struck me. It's one thing for people to talk about spaceships and reptilians, but that 20 and back theme is something that's not like anyone's going to randomly make up, much less 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I can't say that I actually have experienced, but I do know that the earliest documentation that we know of the term 20 and back, and it actually wasn't the term 20 and back, but Michael Ralph in his book, Mission to Mars, or the Mars Reports in 2000. It was a book that came out in 2000. It was the first mention of a 20-year abduction and age regression and whole time travel aspect of these programs. So that was, to my knowledge, the first time that was ever brought to the public's attention. And I don't even think that book is available in hardback. I think it's only like a PDF copy. But then we have William Tompkins, who claims that the U.S. Navy started their 20 and back program in 1980. And he said millions of people a year were being abducted into the program. So I don't know the accuracy of his testimony. It seems credible to me, and I don't know the accuracy of that number. But regardless, it's becoming apparent that something's going on. And then we also have to ask ourselves, like, why do people want to share their memories? Why do people want to talk about this stuff? Sometimes I see people, they'll have a session with some channeler and stuff comes through and then they'll start talking as if, this actually happened to it. But then when you ask them the question, do you remember any of this? They'll say, no, it just came through the session. So I think in one aspect, you have to be careful because it can be irresponsible to share something that came through someone else. And I'm very careful when I share anything that we're going to talk about today. It's literally from my memory and experiences I've had. If I got into the stuff that came through the sessions, it's incredible information that still I have a hard time believing. And I don't want to share that because if I don't feel that it's true or if I don't remember anything, then I just can't, in my own integrity, share that information publicly. Because what happens if I saw a bad reader or I had a bad session and that wasn't good information? Now I'm muddying the waters with this information. So I don't want to do that. And I think it's important to understand that when we have to ask ourselves, why people want to come forward. Is it for ego purposes? Some people like to feel important and they want to tell their story. And I understand that that's the programming we were born into. But then my reason for being here today is because I see a lot of this subject getting ridiculed. And the only reason I was ever drawn to it, because it resonated so deeply. And it wasn't until years down the road that I realized, oh, I think I'm involved in some level. And then things started happening in my life that made me, I quit guessing. I knew that this stuff was real. Someone didn't have to prove it to me, because what was happening in my life was proving it to me. And I can speak about this confidently. I can interview people confidently, because when I listen to them, I know it's real, because I'm going through the same stuff. And I feel like it's important for someone, I like people, watch our show, and a lot of people look up to us in a way. And I feel like it's almost a responsibility in a way to just share this information and let people know that it happens to real people like me and you. And I think it's time to just start talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely the only way that we can do anything about some of the like nefarious activities going on is to know about it. And a lot of the stuff, I think like the idea that we can't do anything about it is definitely not true, because if we couldn't do anything about it, then they would just do it all out in the open. They wouldn't hide it, right? So I think like it's a big part of it. And what our job is, as far as like whistleblowers or whatever you want to call us, is blowing it wide open to the fact that like there's a testimony that connects. There's collaborative testimony. There's evidence. It's not just some sort of like far off thing. Like you can actually put the dots together. And when you listen to different people, that's how you get the clear picture, I think, because like, I feel like that's what I really like about your show is like you give everybody the opportunity to speak, and you always tell everybody else, like, make up your own mind on this information. Like everybody has like their pieces to the puzzle. And I think, we all have things we believe in or stuff like that. They have stuff that gets in the way, like programming, things like that. But the more you start looking at like the fact that it's all these different people, it's happening across the world. You know what I mean? Like that's where it starts to become a clearer picture. Like people are saying the same things and having the same testimony, and that grounds it in reality and makes it that much more real. And I'm sure like when you started interviewing people and seeing it in your life and your own experiences, that's really what wakes you up to it. The reality of it is like the idea that there's no evidence. Well, there really is. And when you look, you do find it.
Mountains of evidence, actually.
I mean, Tyler, you're speaking to people, coming out, and for whatever reasons, it could be a testimony. It could be they want attention. And what we're finding is behind the scenes, if you will, it's people they're recognizing that they saw each other, or you get two people and they both remember seeing a third person.
That was actually really scary for me when I first woke up to this, because I found some of the Facebook groups and stuff like that, and there are people who remembered me, and a lot of people that remembered me were like scared of me, and that's still hard for me to deal with. But I just want to get into this. Like you said that you don't really have experiences with 20 and backs, but you do have experience in your life where you know that you're a part of these programs. You want to maybe like elaborate on that and explain that?
Yeah. So I mean, for all I know, it could be a part of a 20 back. I have no idea. I just can't come out and say that I am. But so whenever I first learned about the secret space program information on cosmic disclosure, back when that came out, it struck me so deep to my core. Like, and everything I heard after that was like, it wasn't like I was learning about it. It was like I was remembering it, and things would be said. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like I just knew, like it was so deep in my DNA. I was so connected to that information. I didn't even have to second guess it. Like I was like, yeah, on a soul level, I knew it was real. These programs, I didn't know the details. That took time to unpack. But so in 2017, a lot of people may have heard me talk about this guy I used to work with who was escorted off the job by black government vehicles, and there's a whole story, a whole wild thing that happened.
Andy Bradley did a really good interview with you where you talked about that. It's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so it's a long story. We could be here all day just telling that story, but long story short, this guy, I believe I don't know how or why he was actually taken from work and what he was involved in, but I think he was a victim of Voice of God technology. He suddenly knew a bunch of stuff, and he suddenly understood things that I'd known him for years, my whole life, and we never talked about it. And all of a sudden, he had this information about weather manipulation, timelines, the programs, ETs, all this stuff that it just didn't make any sense. And he was telling me about jump rooms and time travel programs, and that we have bases on Mars and all this stuff. And I said, how do you know this? How do you know all this stuff? And he was like, well, he's like, I don't know. They're just telling me in my head. They're just telling me. I'm like, who? He's like, I don't know. He didn't know either, but somebody was talking to him. And he basically told me he was recruited to go to Mars. He told me that he was told that the world was going to end in Labor Day of 2017. And him and like a select few people were like chosen to go to Mars. And he was somehow convinced and involved in these programs, and whoever he was working with, I don't know. But and then he extended that invite to me. He told me that he had permission. He was told to ask me. And it became his mission that summer to recruit me essentially to go to Mars. And it's an entire long story. But at the end of the summer, on the very last day that I saw him, I came home from work, and he broke into my house. He was in my house, and it was like one last ditch effort to get me to come with him. And I asked him where was his truck. He parked way at like Best Buy, and he walked to my house because he was like running from somebody, and he was all paranoid. And I took him to his truck. He's like, well, I'm here because this is your last opportunity if you want to go, blah, blah. I'm like, Larry, I'm not going to Mars, dude. Like, sorry. I didn't even believe that he was going there. I didn't know what was going on. I thought he might have been crazy. But I took him to his truck, and the last thing he said to me was, see you on the other side. And after that, I've never seen him again. He's been a missing person since that day, as far as I know. And
hey, Tyler, just to let you know, sorry, we in our rural internet connection here situation, we lost about like a good 8 seconds of what you said. At the point that gentleman is coming to have you drop him back off at his truck at Best Buy, and he's saying, here's the last time I've got for you to come. What did he say from there?
Okay, so yeah, sorry. I took him to his truck, and I dropped him off, and he got in and rolled his window down, and he said, I'll see you on the other side. And he drove off, and it was real weird the way he looked at me. And from that day on, he's been a missing person. I even had people at work at the time like look him up. We tried to figure out if he was homeless, if he went to prison, if he died. He's not even a missing person. He's just like his records are erased. Okay. So I wrote that off. I really somehow just I don't know what happened. I just wrote it off until I started learning about the programs. And it wasn't until I heard Laura Eisenhower's testimony about the Mars recruitment. I was like, wait, that actually happens? And then I had to revisit that time in my life and run it through my head again and consider that everything he was telling me was real. And that's when I started realizing, oh, okay, like it got my attention. And I'm like, why? Okay, now why me? Why me? And all these questions came into my head. So that was my first introduction to being like experiencing something. And then as you tell this story and talk to people, like that doesn't happen to many people. And like he was trying to get me to meet up with this girl who was part of a time travel program. And he was telling me about, how they would get to Mars. It could be a ship, but most likely a jump room. And like, it was just a whole number of things that now I think about. I'm like, man, he was like totally on point with everything. And he was talking to me about timelines, and, there's 2 different timelines, and he would explain to me how we could know like which timeline would prevail and all this stuff.
So Tyler, then I have to ask this, given especially your work in the community today, which we see and know is extremely significant to what we referred loosely as the full disclosure now movement, disclosure now, however you want to say it. And do you think maybe they were trying to recruit you because you have special abilities, or because they use time travel technology to realize you'd be doing what you're doing now unless they got you sucked into their programs?
I think both. I think maybe both. I'm not saying I have special abilities, but I do think on another version of myself has abilities that they might be sought after. And I also think that maybe that's like the only conclusion I can come to is somehow like they look down your timeline, or they know maybe they knew I was going to be a force in the disclosure movement, and they thought, hey, why not? Like, this guy's young, he's not awake yet. He's still a partier. Like, he's naive. He might believe us. He might go to Mars, or he might, wherever Larry was going. They thought they might have been able to hook me in. And I don't know. I always ask myself, what would have happened to me if I said yes? And I packed my bag and got in that truck with him. Like, that was a legitimate option for me. Like, where would I have gone? Like, I don't know. So I think that might be part of the reason. Yeah.
We were just discussing this, but my understanding, right, Arkheim, is that Mars is one of the places they send you for combat training.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, he was told that there's going to be women there, and like they sold him with like the concept of women. Because like you're going to have as many women as you want. That's what he was trying to tell me. And
that's kind of horrifying, given the testimonies of so many of the women who have been in these programs. It's like the fact that they would try to bait him or lure him with a promise.
Yeah, because there are the brothels that, like the brothel on the moon that Daryl James has talked about, and they have that on Mars as well. But yeah, that's just that the story with your friend, that is an absolutely incredible story, and it definitely it's
a testimony.
Yeah, it's testimony, and it's just an absolutely incredible coincidence to me that this would happen to this guy. He'd end up being a missing person, and then you'd end up in the position that you're in. Like, I find it hard to believe that is a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like, there is something there to that, I think. And
then the other thing is, it's interesting that it doesn't sound like, at least to your conscious memory, that they approached you directly. The fact that they'd have Larry, spending the summer, assignment before he gets taken to Mars to recruit you as well. But they're trying to keep a step away via Larry. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it was interesting. And then he started becoming suspicious of me, because everyone in his life, his wife had a restraining order against him. They took his kids away from him. Everyone who got close to him, something would happen to him. And then he started wondering why they were allowing him to talk to me and no one else. And then he was asking me who I worked for. And he's like, who do you work for? I'm like, what are you talking about? We had this argument one day. I'm like, Larry, I have no idea. I don't work for anybody. You're lucky I'm even entertaining you right now. Right. But he really legitimately thought that he started to become suspicious of me, because he's like, they don't allow me to get close to anyone. And they're freely let me talk to. But what was interesting was, when he would be at my house, black government vehicles, like with the blacked out plates, would drive through my neighborhood. And my dog at the time, I only had one dog. She never, ever barked at people, much less cars, especially. She would howl at these cars going by. Now, dogs can sense energy. So I don't even know if there were humans in those cars. Like, I don't know why or what was in those vehicles, but my dog, they'll go crazy. Even they were just driving by slow.
No, let me ask this. Yeah. Pardon me, Tyler. Yeah. While they were driving by and your dog's howling and you're noticing these black vehicles, did you notice or feel any effects? Because a lot of people are getting these EMF type tri-field meters to measure radiation frequencies to see if you got hit by anything, or did you feel? I mean, it's not like you whipped out a meter at the time, but did you yourself feel anything?
No, besides, Larry, you got to go. Like, I don't know what's going on and why these people are driving through my neighborhood, and now they, I don't know what you're involved in, but you got to leave, and I told him that he had basically, hey, you got to go.
But at least points to Larry. It takes it away from Larry's just some paranoid guy, maybe on some kind of illicit street substance, versus now there's black vehicles going by and they're noticeable.
And the fact he disappeared, that's a pretty big one.
Well, later on, but
yeah.
While you got Larry.
Yeah. And another interesting point to that story was this time traveler. He kept wanting me to meet him under this bridge, under the St. Francis Bridge. It's an hour south of me on the St. Francis River. Well, through whistleblowers, we've learned that the St. Francis Mountains in St. Louis is a deep underground military base. It's a massive military base, actually. And that's not far from me. And he kept wanting me to go down to the St. Francis Bridge. And he's like, this girl, she's here in disguise as a homeless person. but she's part of this time travel program. But and she stays under
I
this
remember a guy
bridge.
like that.
Yeah.
I remember a guy like that in the movie. It's depicted in the movie
John Wick does it too.
Under the Silver Lake, which you talked about it.
Oh yeah,
I remember
yeah.
I messaged you a little bit about that privately. Like I remembered that guy. He's real, the homeless guy, the homeless king or whatever. And then he's got like he can access doorways and jump gates and like that. And he's always watching people and like giving them information and stuff like that. Like yeah, I that stuff's 100% totally real.
Well, there's another movie. I didn't. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of it, but I wish I knew. It's about homeless people being time travelers, and the homeless guy gets basically exposed as being a time traveler, and he ends up like just completely opening up to this guy and telling him everything. And he's like, yeah, 30% of all homeless people are time travelers on mission. And
dude, I have testimony that connects to that. So have been talking about how Montauk got moved to New Orleans. Okay, that's where Montauk is, like the time travel project. That Project Phoenix. It's not called Montauk, but that's like what everyone knows it as.
Right.
But and what's interesting about that is like I've been like a kind of like hitchhiking homeless traveler person. That was like a small stint in my life, like, you know what I mean? And I kind of like got into that community and know a lot of those people, and a lot of them end up in New Orleans and like they'll get addicted to something or they'll just drink themselves to death or whatever. And I just like, and like once people start talking about like Montauk was moved there, I was like, that makes so much sense.
Right.
Because like, yeah, and like homeless people, like my dad's schizophrenic, okay? And like if it weren't for my family and like how we cared for him and stuff like that, like he probably would have ended up on the streets. And what I know now is that he's actually like a shaman and he's like extremely gifted. Like I remember he'd even like freak out my friends when I was a kid, like by telling them about like people in their family that had passed on. He'd like have specific details about how they passed and like stuff they wanted to tell them that was extremely specific. And like, yeah, so I just think that there's like definitely some truth to that. Like a lot of these people that seem like it was depicted also in They Clone Tyrone. I keep on bringing up movies, but we all know it's like disclosure in our face. Like there's the homeless guy at the beginning of the movie, and he keeps on telling, he's like, it's in the water, young blood. And he's like telling all this stuff. And like, I totally think there's like a truth to the fact that like hidden in plain sight, like everybody walks past homeless people and like, oh no, I don't want to give you $1 or whatever.
Right.
People don't like to look at them in the eye. People purposely look past them. So what to target and put into these kind of programs and make them have alters and stuff like that are doing that where they might not even realize it. And what's the excuse? Oh, they were drunk, they were on substances, that's why they don't remember that portion of the day, and they'll probably just go on with their lives. And that's huge testimony. And that's
We're freezing.
Oh, we're freezing.
You're good. I can still hear you guys. You're good.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, wow, that's incredible, man. That's incredible that connects that way.
Yeah, exactly. And if I think of the name of that movie, you have to watch it because the whole movie is surrounded by that. And it gets into some really intricate details. And I'm like, this is true. They're telling you the truth. But so then I refused to go meet this lady under the bridge. Like and it was always like in the middle of the night when he wanted to go.
It's scary when people ask you to like go on these like it's scary. Like, part of you wants to say yes, but part of you is like, okay, what happens if I do?
Right.
Like
you want to see, like part of me was like, okay, let's go talk to this time traveler. But something that was overpowering that within me, telling me not to go.
Yeah.
And so then he said, okay, well, if you don't meet with her, would you be interested in talking to another girl? I can have her reach out to you. It'll be via Facebook. And I'm like, sure, why not? Have her reach out to me. And he's like, okay, if she reaches, I'm like, how will I know? And he's like, you'll know. He's like, trust me, she'll make herself known. You'll know. And he's like, but she won't talk to you about anything unless you invite her to the Church of Scientology. You have to invite her to church. And that's like the code word to get her talking about the program.
So you have to invite her.
I had to say it. So she knew that like I was whatever. And he, so next day at work, I'm working, I check my phone. I get blown up on Facebook. This beautiful girl likes like every single one of my photos, like all of them, like completely getting my attention. And then she sends me a private message. She goes, hey, I heard you're friends with Larry. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, I said, hey, are you the time traveler? And she's like, oh, what are you talking about? Like she kept like dancing around it. And something told me, I'm like, I was gonna like ask her about Scientology, but then I didn't. So I kept asking her other questions and she kind of danced around it and then it kind of went nowhere. And I'm just like, this is way off. It doesn't feel right. And I told Larry, he's like, well, did you talk to her? I'm like, yeah, but she didn't tell me anything. He's like, well, did you invite her to church? I'm like, no. And he got real mad. He's like, dude, I told you, like, she's not going to tell you anything unless you like. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I just don't feel right about this. I don't know what I'm getting myself into, whatever. So, but that was another interesting aspect to all of it, you know?
Now, when you looked at her profile, did anything seem off about it other than, wow, she's like a supermodel and what do you know? And everything seems perfect, but there's not a lot of detail about who this person is. It's just more of a profile.
It was a fresh account. It was almost like a brand new account. She was located in Texas. She had like 9 pictures and that was it. You know, it's like one of those scammer accounts, but she messaged me saying that I knew Larry. Like, so I knew it wasn't just like some random.
So I want to put this out to the community out there in general. My favorite thing in these situations is if they won't agree to a 30-second video chat, voice and video, so you can see what, you know, kind of joking, like we're not meeting in person with Tyler here, but at least we can, you know, get a energy signature vibe and a kind of a face-to-face.
Yeah. So I mean, we can go on and on, like I said, about the time with Larry.
Yeah, we can get into some other stuff too.
Yeah,
I actually want to ask you that I've just heard you like casually kind of drop it during some of your interviews where you're talking about other people that you had an you had an encounter with inner Earth beings. And it sounds like it might have been brief, maybe not, but would you want to maybe go into that a little bit and just explain that experience?
Yeah, I can briefly. But there is some other stuff I'd like to share that I haven't shared either that I want to get into.
We can save that for later if we have time.
Let's do what you wanted to get into first, Tyler.
Right. I mean, the inner Earth thing is actually incredible, and I'm going to be speaking a lot about that at this conference I'm speaking at next weekend in Springfield, Missouri. But I've told a lot of that stuff before in other interviews, and I kind of
let's save it for
maybe we can give it like a link in the description to like another where we talk about that.
But let's hear what you wanted to bring, Tyler.
Well, what else? So this all got real for me fairly recent. A couple of years ago, I had another recruitment attempt from somebody else, and this guy claimed to be a part of the these black programs, clearing out these tunnels. A lot of people might know who I'm talking about, but it was really interesting. But he had information about me that no one could have known, and he knew things about me. He was like proved himself over and over. Like he somehow was involved in something that had information that he got my attention, and we would talk all the time. And he would just enamor me with all this information, and he eventually said, you know, what do you think about, what would you ever think about joining one of these programs? I'm like, what do you mean? Like the secret space program? He's like, well, something like that. Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and he kept saying some stuff. I'm like, are you trying to recruit me right now? Like, you know, I thought he was joking. He's like, yeah, let's just pretend that I am. And he's like, do you mind answering a few questions? And then he started asking me a series of questions. And the very last one was, what's the one thing you want more than anything in life? And I told him love. And he goes, you sure about that? That's your like final answer? I'm like, yeah, there's nothing more important. Like I want true love, you know, which never tell anybody the true answer to that question when they ask you, because they're going to use it against you 100%. And I learned the hard way. And he said, don't be surprised if you're tested in that area. So a week later, I meet this girl. We fall in love, head over heels. She lives in Australia. And after that, like I became what some people call targeted individual. I started having all of that stuff happen to me. But the first thing that happened was I had this wild, what I thought was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. In the experience, in the dream, I was taken in the middle of the night in a black vehicle. I just remember like waking up in the vehicle and brought to these 2 buildings in the middle of the night. And this was so vivid. I even drew it, and I have drawings I'll share just to kind of show you guys. But I was taken into these buildings and brought down into the basement, and I was tested for my abilities. And I'll get into like the details of this a little bit, but just to kind of summarize it so people know where I'm going with this, I woke up and this was so real. It was so vivid. I knew the building. I was like, that was real. Like that was not what just happened. I had to draw it. I never draw my dreams. I had to draw pictures of the buildings. I just had to get it out. And it wasn't until, I don't know, it wasn't very long after that. I was talking to a friend and he mentioned to me something about he had an experience or memories from the Boeing facility. And as soon as he said Boeing, I was like, that's it. I said, those were Boeing buildings. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew they were in Illinois and I knew there were Boeing buildings. So I'm on Google Earth looking up every Boeing facility around me. And I don't see anything. I'm like, oh yeah, Illinois. Why am I not looking in Illinois? I go to Illinois Boeing, type it in. I see the aerial view. My heart almost stopped. I knew that was the buildings.
And how far away was that from your home at the time?
About 45 minutes, 40 minutes. Yeah. From my house. And by the way, the guy who, like, when I showed up in the black vehicle in the middle of the night with a couple other vehicles, the guy who was trying to recruit me was in one of the vehicles. Like he was kind of like leading that team. And so anyway, I drove out there and I had to see for myself. And there was something very particular that I remembered about being in those buildings in the middle of the night. I remember seeing the old company I worked for, Perrick Construction. I used to work for them for 15 years. I remember seeing their sign, and there was a job site next door that they were building something. And I thought that's even weirder. Like that, why would something like that, like why would a detail like that be in there? So when I drove out there and I found those two buildings, I was blown away. I took pictures, they matched my drawings. And then I saw this truck driving with like a dumpster on the back of it, and it had my old company's name on it, Perrick. And I looked where the truck was driving, and boom, there's a job site. The sign that says Perrick. My company was my ex company was building a building next to this. I'm like, okay, that's when it got real for me. So I literally
that's just, but pardon me, real quick. The fact that your previous company was working there at a job site right next to Boeing that you got perhaps abducted to a few nights prior to that, is that just a coincidence, a synchronicity, or was there a tie between Boeing, who, as part of the long-established military-industrial complex, is involved in these programs? But how about Perrick Construction?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had a contract with Boeing for like 20 years or something. So, and they've been doing a lot of their buildings. And the building I called some old friends and I said, hey, what are they building out there? And so it's another Boeing facility. It was a drone manufacturing facility or something where they're building drones. But either way, like I'm going to share my screen real quick, just because I have the drawings and the picture of the building that I just think it's really interesting. It just pencil drawings, but here, let me see if I can do this. Share screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so these were the buildings I remember, or something very similar. And we pulled up in two vehicles, and everybody was wearing black. And we went in between these buildings and a door around the back. So that's what I remember. And then specifically, like the door around the back, I remember. Sorry. For some reason that window just went away. Okay, I remember the K7. I don't know why, but can you guys can still see that, right?
Very clearly, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember the K7, the door in the back, and I remember those yellow baluster, those columns, very distinctly, and I also remembered those skinny rectangle windows, or I didn't know they were windows at the time. I thought it was like paint or something, but I remembered that very vividly.
And then are these like barriers right here? Are these like posts?
So like it was, the memory was kind of foggy, but that was like the best to my ability. So I went out there.
I'm just noting, like all these posts, like they're around buildings that are like high security facilities. They don't want people ramming like vehicles into. So sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
So
these details.
So anyway, I drew this the next morning. And then when I finally went out there to look at the site. Where's that photo at? So these are the buildings. And it was like, okay, they're exactly the yellow columns, the balusters, the rectangled windows, all of that. I was just like, wow, like this is it. It's a Boeing facility, but it was like in between these two buildings through this gate is where we went, and we went around the backside to the building with the red stripe on it. And I wanted so bad to get back there to look at the door, see if there was a door back there, but it was all fenced off. Like the only thing on the other side of that fence was, see if I can find my cursor, was this old military plane. It's like an airport. This is a mini airport, actually, which is also curious to me.
Definitely.
But and then, everything's restricted area. This was one of the roads I couldn't go down, but so whenever we went around to the backside of this building and they took me down, like this is why I wonder if like a lot of the space program stuff happens on a slightly different timeline or not, like or another dimension even. I don't know. But when they took me down into this building, we went down the stairs. I remember the stairs. Like if I could get into that building, I'd love to see if it looks like what I remember, because I could tell you exactly where they took me. And it was all like very like metallic factory like, but we were in the basement and then we went into this room. They had like this big giant door on it that seemed like a hangar door or something. And we go into the room and like there's a big square in the middle of the floor, and there's like people all standing around the square, almost like it's a viewing gallery or something. And it was very apparent that like the floor was in the middle was some sort of, I don't know if it's a technology, a magnetic plate or what, but it was separate from all the individual squares on the outside. And the guy who brought me down there goes in the room and he puts on like this hazmat suit. And there's another black woman in there. I remember she was like the commanding officer and she was in charge of whoever, like whatever experiment. Like I walked into something and she's like, okay. She's like, anyone not wearing a mask has to leave the room right now. And I wasn't wearing a mask, so I started walking out of the room. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I hear Tyler. He goes, Tyler, not you. And I'm like, okay. So I come back and they close the door and everybody puts these masks on, and he has this hazmat suit and he reaches down and undoes this hatch in the floor and raises this cylinder up, this like box, and it's inside this liquid is, I drew it because it was something like this, and it was constantly morphine, and like it was like almost like graphene oxide kind of.
And did you have a mask at this point?
No, I didn't have
everyone else but you.
Yeah, so I realized what they were trying to do is test my reaction to this thing, and I'll tell you what happened. So it was in this liquid, and he had these big tongs, and he reaches in the box and pulls these and pulls this thing out of the liquid. And as soon as he did, it was like an energy weapon. It was just like a blast of energy that sent everyone to their knees. It was like somebody turned the gravity on high, and you couldn't hardly stand up. And
was it like liquid nitrogen was being kept cold and then like warmed up, and then
it was just in some sort of liquid. I don't know.
Okay.
But then whenever he took it out, and it was just constantly moving and just changing forms and shapes. It was almost like a spider, but not. It was definitely like graphene oxide looking type of black goo, whatever. And it was emanating this horrible, heavy, dense energy that literally brought everyone in the room to their knees, except for Mike, the guy who was in the hazmat suit, and myself. It started to bring me down. And I recognized the energy from being attacked years and years, like in my sleep at night, whenever I'm under paralysis and I'm fighting these entities and whatever the hell reptilians. They use the same frequency to paralyze your body. And I had gotten so good at combating that, I knew how to counter that frequency, and I knew how to break the paralysis so it quit working on me. And then when I felt that energy, I was familiar with it, and my body immediately knew how to combat it. So I was able to stand up, and I was the only one that didn't get brought to my knees, and people were looking at me like I was they couldn't believe their eyes that I was able to stand up. And I had realized they had brought many people down into this room and tested them to see how they would respond to this. And then he let go of it with the tongs, and it just started like floating up and then when it started floating, I don't even know how I started like levitating with it. Like when he let go of it and it started going, I started like raising up with it. And I've had many experiences and memories and dreams of levitating. And I've already I knew how to handle my body during levitation because I had all those experiences. So I was coming up face to face with this thing, like in the middle of this like square, like arena. I don't know. I know this sounds crazy and I'm not asking anyone to believe it, but this is what happened. And I just somehow I thought this thing was going to kill me. Like if I didn't do something about it, this thing was just going to envelop me. It was extremely terrifying. Mm-hmm. And I just said no. And I just stuck my hand out and just a blast of light, white light just came out of my hand and just pulverized this thing. And then I fell to the ground and everybody was released from the hold they were under. And people were looking at me like I was Neo or something. I felt, and I had no idea what was going on. And they both looked at each other, the black lady and Mike, they looked at each other. And the next thing I remember after that was I was in an abandoned mall. That was the next thing. I don't even remember what happened after that. And I was in an abandoned mall and there was one of these things on the loose. And there was a team of a black ops team in there trying to take one of these things down. They were all in those same hazmat suits and they had weapons. And it seemed like they had been in there trying to eliminate this thing for a while. I don't know if this was a training exercise or what. And I just woke up in there and I saw it and I just dealt with it like I dealt with the one in the room. And then that was it. After that, that was where the memory ended. But then when I woke up that next morning, I had that full memory and I eventually found those buildings. And I don't know, guys, it's it wasn't even real to me until I found the buildings. And then I was then I had to consider okay, what's going on here? What is actually happening here?
I think really what it is we're programmed, even as you, who is somebody in this community who's, interviewed all sorts of people who talk about, similar experiences, and you believe them. What's strange about, the way our brain works is when this stuff happens to us, ourselves, we tend to not believe it. And I just, you have to really question, how would you remember that building? All this stuff, I really do think something happened to you there. And, I just have told you before that I just feel I recognize your energy. It's not unfamiliar or new to me. I've known you from somewhere before. We've met. I don't actually have any memories of you. Maybe if someday that'll come up, but I have met people in the community who say that they've seen you places and stuff like that. And frankly, I'm one to believe them. And I think that what's going on right now is and I'm kind of curious as your opinion on this, the new Earth, the idea of creating a new Earth, I think that's 100% real. And I think that what we're in charge of right now is that. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes where the old system is falling apart. And there's a lot of ET out there that are positive that are already meeting with people and just making agreements and just figuring out okay, what do you want your planet to be like what kind of business, just figuring out, okay, what's new Earth, what do you guys want it to be like, and then people making agreements okay, yeah, you can come on board with the Galactic Federation as new Earth, we like you, yeah, sure, okay, shake hands or whatever it is they do in their culture. But I think that something like that is actually happening behind the scenes,
but more on it, not necessarily on a conscious level. This could literally be happening while people are going to sleep.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that we're not supposed to remember. And I think that if there's anything that I've learned from these programs, it's how much we underestimate how faulty memory can be. Memory is a thing that can be tampered with, messed with, it can be faulty. And
but at the same time, let's look at your specific memory here, Tyler. It all adds up and it's perfectly consistent with these patterns that have emerged. Okay. You multiple attempts to recruit you by people claiming to be and with insider knowledge of these programs. They tested you for an ability, and then what do you know? Okay, this guy passes their little test,
and
then
one of
now
the things I
you're
want to say right now, and I haven't ever really said this before, is like people like always say like I know people that like say like think like how cool it must be to like have these abilities and be in these programs, because like I know I have abilities that are really intense and really crazy, and like it'd be hard for some people to wrap their mind around and believe. But what people don't understand is like it's actually terrifying, because the military like kidnaps you when you're a child, and like they need those abilities and they take them from you and they use them as like a weapon. And that's what's happening to people. Is I think that like a lot of us really are like powerful beings that are star seeds that came here to help, and the military, through looking glass technology and everything else and seeing through timelines, they know exactly who we are.
Right. They
And
target you. They target you from birth. They know exactly what planet, what planet, well, maybe what planet you're from, but what family you're going to, the parents, they know who the parents are. I mean, they have a readout on they have a file on the entire.
Something that I haven't talked about publicly yet actually is the fact that, and I don't want to take over your interview, so I'm just going to briefly say it, but they can decide what family you're going to be put in, because a lot of us are actually like born in these programs. Like someone got pregnant in one of these like Black Ops programs, and then like they need to put your fetus somewhere. So they put it into like a Project Surrogate type mother, and then through time travel, it's all really fast. Like they're able to get you back at 6 years old, and then put you back, and then grab you again when you're old enough to like learn how to fight in combat. So like they're able to actually put people in the families, which is really creepy, because I've gotten memories of like different timelines where I'm not in the same family. But I don't want to take over your interview. That's something that I'll talk about later when other people interview me. But
well, something interesting about that, to that note, is this is something I don't share because I don't have a memory of this, but why not? Let's entertain it. I did talk with Peter the Insider, and it was pretty wild. He claims to he looked up Larry and all the stuff, like basically verified everything I was talking about. But the one thing he did when he pulled my file was he was like, oh, like he goes, you weren't born in 1986. He goes, you were born in 1966. 20 years earlier in Venice, Florida. And he said you were under this name, but it had the same initials. And he goes, you were immediately a missing child and you were taken into the programs. And at the end of your 20 years, instead of going back into that body, they put you into your mother's womb. Like I went and I was born. So he said my actual incarnation on this planet, like in this life, began in 1966, not 1986. And he goes, this would explain why you feel older, your body hurts. So he goes, you're old soul, all this stuff. You feel like you've been here before. And when he told me that, it really hit me emotionally, and I have no way of proving this. I don't have any memory of this, but it did something to me emotionally, and I had to.
I have some advice for you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Don't gaslight yourself. Like you always talk about like trust your gut feeling, use your own discernment, and like like when you find out, when these files get unsealed, from what I actually remember like timelines where we actually see like our files and stuff like that. And I just remember the feeling of like, why did I ever doubt my intuition so much? Like I knew all this stuff already. You know what I mean? Like I always doubted myself.
It makes sense because it's hard to believe. And like, it's easy to sit there and interview people and listen to these stories and believe what they're saying. But then when it comes out of your mouth and it happens to you, you really like, oh, okay, like, am I crazy here? It puts you in somebody else's shoes. But there is one thing recently that happened that I'd like to share. And you see me under your Facebook post talking about, are you guys froze? Oh no, you're there. You see me under your Facebook post talking about Neil McDonough, the actor. And I was like, I had encountered him, and you were talking about celebrities and the programs and stuff. So I was in Colorado with a friend recently, and the last day of the trip, I wanted to go up to the Cheyenne Mountain. I wanted to see, I wanted to drive up to the gate, see if I could take a picture and just see what happens, And on the way, my friend was like, there's the Air Force Academy over there. And I looked over and I'm like, I just had this flashback. Like I knew the place. And I was like, how do you get there? And she's like, the exit's right here. And I like darted across 4 lanes and got off the highway. It she was like, whoa. I was like, I gotta go. I was like, can you, she's like, yeah, you can actually tour the grounds there. It's like the main Air Force Academy. And I was like, let's go. She was like, she thought it was weird. I was just like all of a sudden on a mission and like completely changed the plans. We were going to Cheyenne Mountain. So I get off the highway and we're driving up to the gate and there's a line of cars going through the security guard station. And I'll show you a picture of that. Let me share the screen again.
And for the audience, Cheyenne Mountain apparently is where there's a real Stargate in the basement.
Yeah, Project Looking Glass, I think, happened there.
Yeah. Apparently there's a lot that goes on there.
Oh
yeah. So anyway, this is the guard station. We had to wait in line, and then we were sitting in line, and they were just like the armed personnel, and they were just checking the ID, and then the car would go. But I was looking at those lines. I was like, I know those colors. Those colors are to indicate that this is an underground base. And those are the stripes on the floor in the underground facility, and each one is a different security clearance. You've seen it in the movies, you've heard whistleblowers talk about it. But this is them telling you without telling you that this is also an underground facility, and like top probably potentially where who knows what's going on. Definitely ET program related stuff. But I was explaining to her that these colors indicate the stripes, and that's how you know whatever. And she's like, "How do you know that?" I was like, "I don't know." And we get up to the guard, and she looks at our IDs, and then she's like, "Okay." Looks at us. She goes, "Can you pop the trunk, please?" And she literally searched our whole vehicle. Like the only car in the whole line would search the whole vehicle.
Did they check both your IDs or just hers?
Yeah, both. And so whatever. And she let us go. It was fine. But this thought was curious that we were the only ones. Like, of course. So we get onto the site. I'm having all these emotional feelings. I'm like, I remember this place. I'm like, I've never been here in my life before. Like, I remember this place. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I said, I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like I'm home. Like, it feels like I'm back home. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I hate to say that a place like this, a military base would feel like home, but I feel like home. And I'm driving and I'm like, yeah, I remember these buildings. And then we got around the corner and I seen the view of the mountains, which is, like here, and I pulled the car over and I broke down in tears. Like I had all these memories just come back in an instant. And she's like, what is going on? She's like, are you okay? I'm like, I literally was sobbing. Like all this stuff was coming to the surface. I had a full body reaction. And it's like, I remember this place. I've been here. And I was like, I'm like, that building. I said that, and then we're driving up, and I'm like, that building over there, those are dorms. Those are dorms, and that's like the recruitment center where they take the new recruits. And I said, I remember standing in there, and I'm telling her all this stuff, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy. And where's the next photo? So,
and do you suppose this happened from when you were first incarnated in 1966? Was it?
Don't know. That's a good question. So I never thought about that. So I took this photo when we parked in the building to the left. I said, that's the building I was taken to. I remember it vividly. I said, I was taken into that building and I was standing in a circle of people. And one of those people was Neil McDonough, the actor, which is, if you guys don't know who that is, I got a picture of him here. He plays the same role in every movie. Like, and there's no way he's not involved.
Right.
There's even a new movie coming out with him called The Benefactor, where he's in charge of other timelines. It's completely. I saw that movie was coming out. I'm like, get no fucking way,
Well, I mean, them putting Cheyenne Mountain and Stargate in this series. It's
so this is him in another movie. He's always some sort of Air Force, military, captain, admiral, something. You know what I mean? And he has all the Eagles in these movies, and I think that the people that star or play in these movies, they also they're playing roles that they serve in the programs as well. But I pull up and I'm explaining to her, I'm like, yeah, I was in this building and there was a circle of people and they were talking to me. They were trying to recruit me. And they're like, yeah, don't think of this as a recruitment, but blah, blah, we'd love to have you, you're the perfect fit. And they're trying to sell it to me. And I remember Neil McDonough. I just remember him being in a part of that circle. And we broke free, and like I was like, I remember just standing there like thinking to myself, how did I get here? Like I didn't have any memory of how I got onto the base. Like I remember standing in the circle, like I wasn't even really listening to them. I just kept thinking to myself, how did I get here? How did I get here? Like and I just couldn't figure it out. And I knew something was off, and like I didn't want to be there. I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. And then I'm like, they got me. I was like, they got me. Damn it. Like somehow they got me. And I'm standing there, and he's and then everybody breaks off, and he walks me down the hall, and they bring me into this room to watch this introductory film. And he's standing there next to me, and I'm watching this movie. It's like, welcome to the Air Force Academy, blah, blah. And it's like all just like a commercial or something you'd see on TV. And all of a sudden it like cuts to a video of them torturing children in cages and like all this stuff. And it's like horrible. And I looked at him like, what the fuck? I remember I was like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, what is this? And he goes, relax. Relax. It's all part of the job. And I was like, dude, turn that off. I was like, turn that off. Like, I don't want to see that. I got super pissed at him.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like smiled at me, and he smirked at me, and he's like, welcome to the base, or so, I forgot what he said, welcome to something. It's foggy, you know how the memories are, and then he goes, do you want to see your room first? Are you hungry? Do you want to go to the cafeteria? And I just remember being in a daze. I was like, I guess I'll eat something. I was starving. I thought about it, and I was starving. And they escorted me into the cafeteria. And I remember everybody was eating. There was like a buffet of food, and immediately I noticed something that was off. Like there was female Air Force recruits, also like females, but they were all like beautiful, like way too beautiful. And immediately, like all of them were looking at me, like they were all ready. Like they all just wanted to have sex with me. Like they were eye fucking me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I was like, this is off. Like I was like, this isn't how reality works. And I go get my food, and the one girl walks up to me, and she's immediately like throwing herself at me. And I'm like, these are honeypot girls. I'm like, these girls are here to keep these guys at bay, like to keep them, like just like Larry was talking about. They sell the programs with women, so they
for all we know, those ladies are beta kitten programmed, and they're not even under their own volition. They're being dangled in front of you.
Most likely, yeah.
Right. And I got so sick to my stomach at that point, I didn't even eat my food. And I was like, can you show me where my room is? And they brought me up to another building, which isn't in this photo. And they took me up to the room, and I remember looking out the window thinking to myself, how am I going to escape? I got to escape. Like I remember just thinking over and over, like, how can I get out of here? I have to escape. And then for some reason, I also know that there's like a jump room or a portal under this facility. I just remember that. And I think I did end up escaping, and I think it was through that portal, or that part's memory. But I remember being chased and running down through like the basement of this facility. And I remember some sort of weird like jump room thing. But what's also curious about this place is, see that pointed thing? It's all under construction now. It's actually boxed off. They built an entire building around it. It's a chapel. They claim that it's a chapel, right? But it's not. It's a technology. It's a technology for the programs to communicate. Well, what they're trying to do is recreate technology that they discovered on this location, which is why they chose this. And they're trying to harness that technology, but they don't realize that the technology's coming from the mountains, and they're never going to be able to recreate it because they don't understand the significance of the mountains. But anyway, they built this, and they shut it down. And then now they built an entire building around this right now, and it's under construction until like 2028. Now, I'm in construction. Like what kind of rehab takes freaking 5 years, you know? And what they're doing is they're upgrading the technology, in my opinion. But the entire Air Force Academy is connected to the Cheyenne complex and the Stargates, and there's an entire massive hub here for the programs, in my opinion. But I definitely remember Neil being there, and I don't know why. Like you see the actor, I'm like, why would an actor be in my memory? But I had a full it took me so long to recover from that day. We walked around that base. I was being followed by 2 different people. I mean, maybe I was being paranoid, but I wasn't, because my friend almost came into the men's bathroom because this guy followed me in there, and he was staring me down the whole time. It was super weird. And she was like, something is off. Like, I was like, I kept wanting to go. And she's like, well, maybe it's good if you walk around and like just process this. And then this other guy was followed us into this other building, and he literally like bumped into me, like bumped into my shoulder. And he like, as we're walking in, he like blew past us and almost knocked me over and like flew through the door. And we looked at each other, and he looked like a Fed boy, had the glasses on or whatever. And I remember he like flew through the door and he checked his watch, and he was like, just took off so fast. He went around the corner. I didn't see where he went. We walked around in the building and we left. We were leaving. As soon as we were walking out the doors, he just came out of nowhere and he hit us again, like bumped into us again and walked out. And as soon as he walked out, he checked his watch again and pressed a button. And I was like, we have to get out of here. I was like panicking. I was having a panic attack. I'm like, I can't be here. Like, this was stirring up so many memories and emotions. And I just couldn't believe that I had been here before. It was so real to me. I was like, I know this place. And every time I yeah.
Which building were you in? Were you in this building depicted when this guy is body checking you, or are you in a different building?
No. So we were in they have like a tour. They have like a gift shop area.
Okay.
Yeah. This building's a chapel. This building was shut off, but this is inside the chapel, and it has like this massive organ piece of equipment, which, you know, frequency and sound, like obviously we understand that's a technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another picture of the inside of it. I don't know if I got it in here or not, but it's just like, you look at the picture and like, okay, this is
okay.
Something.
So the guy body checks you a second time. He touches his watch again. You're like, I got to get out of here to your girlfriend. And then what happened?
Well, he just beelined to his car. He never looked back, and he got in and took off. And then we went back to the car at that point and got out, and left. And I just remember, like, I just felt, it took me a long time. It changed my life at that point. Like, and I even took like the pamphlet for the place. I took one home, like just like to sit there and like meditate with it to see if I can get more memories back. But it's scary. Like, something in me, like there's a fight or flight. And every time I try and sit with it to like dive into that more, I can't. Like, I don't know. I'm trying, like, maybe I shouldn't do that. But, and what she told me, she goes, you know, if you just told me this story, I would find it interesting. But she goes, me witnessing you break down like that and pulling the car over, she's like, you can't fake that. She goes like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't, like, she had a hard time believing in all the programs and stuff at the time. But she's like, if she didn't see that, like, that's what sold it for her. And I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like, I just broke down, you know.
Well, then she also got to see this Fed boy hassling you on campus. Like, that's like Larry, you know, where we've got the black cards going by. That definitely takes it up a notch.
Oh yeah. So here's the best part. I didn't even say. So after I got done explaining to her that I was standing in the circle and like being recruited and all that stuff, and they took me to watch that movie, I told her all that before we went into that building. We walked into the building that I've never set foot in this body, and the first time ever on the site. And guess what we see? There's a kid in there in a circle of people with like an Air Force officer, a recruiter, and his family. And he's standing there, and the guy literally says, he goes, no, I don't want you to think of this as a recruitment. And she turned around and looked at me with like, her jaw was on the floor. Like, exactly what I described happened to me in that building. We walked into that scenario, and there is no way that I could have known that those type of recruitment introductory things happened in that building unless there's no way I could have known that. There's just no way. And we walked into it, and that, to me, that was all I needed to see to know that it was real.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, you were there, and that's all. We're at the point now on our like on our channel and pretty much on your, like, we're all at the point where we don't have to sit here and question, is this real, right? Like, we know.
Yeah, we know.
And same thing with the people watching this. Like, they know too. Like, they wouldn't be tuned in if they didn't.
And Tyler, in terms of your experiences there, your testimony, do you suspect that maybe they had you there for a while? You remember not only the recruitment, but between the time when you were got to escape, however you escaped, do you feel that they had you run missions, quote unquote, and that might be part of the visceral reaction, or they only had you for the day and you got the heck out of there promptly?
I don't know. I know that a lot more. I think a lot more happened there than I remember.
We usually only remember the first day. Like a lot of the times, like even that's blurry. But you usually only remember the first day if you get memories back.
Yeah,
Like, that's
I mean
very common.
that would be the first day for sure.
Yeah. Like Daryl James talks about that too. Like with his
Right,
story.
he does. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And then there's all kinds of other things you just notice, and once you realize like this is all a world within a world, and most of these buildings are actually like doubling as something else at our front for some sort of recruitment center or something. Like there's an appliance warehouse.
Yeah, it's like so common.
Yeah, there's an appliance warehouse down the street from me called Appliance Discounters, and it has the it actually has the like here, I'll show you. Share. I just shared the screen again. So like it has the A for the like aerospace industry, and what's weird is like it's right by like all these recruitment centers, and like this restaurant that I always eat at that's right next to this place. Like one day I walked in there, like after I figured out that I was like when I left the restaurant one day, I saw the logo and I'm like, that's weird. Like, and then I went into the appliance shop and looked around and I felt like a direct energy weapon was being used on me. Maybe I was crazy, but anyway, the second time I went back to that restaurant, I'm thinking to myself, it's like some sort of recruitment center or something. And I walk into the restaurant and there's 4 female Navy recruiters sitting at the table eating as soon as I walk in the door. Literally like the honeypot female recruiters like I remembered at the base. Like, and I'm just like, I was so tempted to go talk to them, but I was like, no, don't even engage because who knows, and there's just stuff like that. And then so that day, whenever I left when I left that restaurant, literally pulling out of the parking lot, this truck was blocking the exit. Pegasus Transportation.
Holy shit, dude.
This truck was I took this picture from the parking lot of that building.
Wow.
And I was like, there's no way. So fast forward to February of this year, I went on a trip to New Mexico. We booked an Airbnb that was technically, we didn't even know. Well, we did find out, but it was called the Gray Escape, which I found interesting. Like, who names an Airbnb the Gray Escape? And then we were down the street from a recruitment center that recruited for all 4 branches of the military: Navy, Air Force, Navy, Air Force, Army, and Marines. But here's what caught my attention. So I had to go back and take these pictures from Google Earth because I didn't take them there. I wasn't thinking about it. Here's what caught my attention. So this building is literally like the recruitment center is connected to that Smoothie King. Look at the sign, Pegasus Retail. And
Project Pegasus.
Yeah, Pegasus Retail, right next to the so there's the sign, and here on to the right is the recruitment center. I'm like, recruitment center, Pegasus. I just had that Pegasus encounter in St. Louis that you guys just saw. Like, I don't know, just weird things like that. You start to really look at things differently. Like, these buildings aren't like they're being doubled. They double as something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even like you're talking about with the Boeing thing near where you live. I had a similar situation, but it was with a company called Gulfstream, and they were trying to get me to work there. Like, I was just trying to upgrade. I was doing janitor work at the time, and the job I had was freaking me out because there was SSP stuff going up to school, and I was like, working with the kids is like in the underground facility, like there's a elevator that went down, and I was like trying to find a new job where there wasn't sketchy stuff going on. And so I go to this Gulfstream, and the guy's like, oh yeah, so you're gonna have to sign all this paperwork. And he's like, it's gonna take you 2 or 3 weeks to get your security clearance. And I'm like, I'm just a janitor. Like, obviously I didn't take that job, but like I knew, like, I'm like, they're probably like building spaceships underneath the ground or something like that. And it probably would have been one of those jobs like where Preston Nichols talks about it with Montauk, where like during the day he worked 2 different jobs. Like I think it would have been like that kind of scenario. And I think that kind of stuff happens like more often than people realize. Like,
all the time.
And I think that like these programs, like people like us, I think we're more likely to get memories back because of our abilities and because, you know, we have psychic abilities and things like that. But I really do think like they need janitors, they need cooks, they need, and I just feel like more people are involved in this than people than even we as SSP whistleblowers like amount to. Like, I just think it's like way more far reaching than people realize, because it's free labor. It's like that meme, like it's free real estate, you know, it's the same thing. Like, it's free labor, unlimited free labor. Unfortunately, like, evil groups are going to take advantage of that if that's the thing. And that's the reason why this disclosure movement is so important, is because once people understand the concept, and even once we learn like fail safes where you can like stop or make it so you realize it, like, I don't know, like that's really the number one thing for me, is I want this to stop. I want this like massive amnesia that we have, this hypnosis. Like our program, our channel has like literally the description is just anti-mind control. That's it. That's the whole description.
Right.
Like that's what I want the end of this, and I want people to just, I don't know. I just want, I goes without saying, I'm just that's preaching to the choir right now, but it's like, I really just want this to end. And I'm tired of having, like, me personally, I'm tired of having entire lifetime stolen from me on a fairly regular basis. Like, it's psychologically a lot, like it's damaging. Like, and it's just, there's so much evidence. Like, you just laid it all out, and that was beautiful, Tyler. I really appreciate, like, can't thank you enough for coming on the show and just being like, wait, I know you want to talk about the inner earth, but trust me, you got to see this stuff. Like, well, I'm really glad you did that, because it was amazing.
I mean, not many people like are bringing I mean, a lot of people do have photos. I shouldn't say not many, but I think it's important whenever you have stuff to show and to go along with it, whether it's evidence or not. Like, it's still, in my opinion, it helps for the listener.
Gears turning in your brain for sure.
Right.
And I wanted to add, you know, in our community, we have remote viewers now, in addition to, you know, people who are able to, you know, through
he's worked with Jessica Jones before.
Yeah,
you know,
the cryptid hunters, and through telepathic contact, reach higher beings and get information. A question I have for you, Tyler, is have you done any QHHT or other types of techniques, or consulted anybody who have any of these abilities? And then have you gotten any insight?
Oh yeah, like if I told you I've had 6 different QHHT sessions from 6 different people. I've seen channelers. I've, you know, talked to Peter the Insider. I've had other sessions where stuff comes through. If I started talking about all that stuff, like, it's incredible what I'm involved in, and when I was taken, how I was taken, where I was taken. I don't have memories of any of that stuff, so I don't talk about it.
Right.
I mean, the stuff from the sessions that came out of my own, or the hypnosis that came out of my own mouth. And I still don't talk about that stuff. Like, I had one whole life on a Mars that I remembered, or that came through a session in one of my hypnoses, and it was really interesting.
I sense that you just don't want to ever like say something that's untrue, and I respect that. But at the same time, like, I guess you can always just like put that grain of salt out there that like, hey, this is crazy for even me. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right? Yeah, I know. It's just, like I said, like if some of it I'm just not actually comfortable talking about. It's not that I don't want to. It's such wild information that, like, if I were to listen to myself, like if I were to record an interview and then listen to myself back, like, if I know it's not coming from like my heart and my true memory, like, I just don't feel like I should be sharing it yet. And that's all. Like, I'll tell anybody sitting around a fire, we can talk about it all night long, but I'm not going to go on a public forum and share that just yet. Maybe at some point I'll share all of it, but until I know that it's even accurate, until I can somehow verify that it's even accurate, then I don't think it's necessary, because what good is all that information going to do everybody anyway? Like, we know it exists. So I don't know.
Well, Tyler, you know, speaking to, in our closing moments here, what good it does. One of the things we like to put out the call to everyone, for yourself and then for posterity and for the public record, write out your chronology timeline, what year you were born, when you were first taken, what things you saw. And it might look like the Wolverine chronology if you have 20 backs or time looping or reincarnating. And then write up a summary of your timeline. And then off of that, we ask your demands. And a lot of people, we have very similar demands. We want full disclosure. We want justice. A lot of people, you may have worked lifetimes or however many years that you don't remember.
And I want to close it. I want to close
Right.
the interview also on two things: New Earth, and then like the disclosure movement. But one thing I want to ask you, Tyler, is what do you think that it is going to take for us to take this secret space program, time travel, all this stuff, take this out of the conference circuit and get to the point where we've got the Air Force and Navy and stuff like that in court, and we're actually dismantling these programs and then building the New Earth military. Do you think we're at the beginning steps to that?
I think we're at the very, very beginning steps, the prerequisites for that. I don't think we're quite there. I know we're not quite there yet. Well, time doesn't exist, so we are there, and it's going to happen. But it's physically, it's kind of playing out a little slower than we thought. There's all this weird shit happening right now. If anyone listened to our recent episode with Daryl James, we kind of covered and answered that question. But I think we're going to get there. But I think part of my mission right now is we all know what happened with Corey Goode recently and the whole deposition that came out. And when that came out, thousands upon thousands of people automatically wrote off all the secret space program as bullshit. He was the godfather of it for some reason. At least that's the way some people viewed it. And it was actually detrimental to the topic, to the subject, because now everyone's like, oh, he said he was lying about this, whatever. There's a whole, that's an entirely different discussion. But it really, I think we took a few steps back with that. And I think that was always the plan. And so I feel a responsibility and obligation to keep this stuff alive. But I realize we're not going to keep it alive by telling all these fantastical stories from space. We need to reach the skeptics. So that's why we're working on a documentary right now. And I actually just got back from California with Tony Rodriguez. We went to Inyo Kern. We went to the place where he had his memories. Talk about a crazy story and being followed and all that stuff. That was interesting. But we got some incredible footage. So what we're doing is we're filming a documentary right now. I don't know when it's going to be released. It's going to be a while probably because I want to do it right. But we're going to focus on the Earth-based aspect of the programs, the recruitment process, the places we can go to, boots on the ground, have photographs of, we can corroborate stuff that would, and show people that forget what's going on in space. This is the beginning stages of this program. And this is what's happening right here on this planet. And these buildings are real, that this person remembered, this is real. We can prove this. Here's something, we're going to go in and try to connect the dots and make it tangible. So even when a skeptic watches this documentary, they're going to be like, I want to make it so they have to at least question it.
Right.
I don't want to start off in
that's great.
I don't want to start off with somebody I was on Jupiter and we were doing, we lived on a ranch on the rings of Saturn and all, no one, I don't care who you are. If you're trying to make people take this stuff seriously, that stuff's not going to make them take it seriously. You got to start on Earth. You got to build the foundation for that these programs do exist. And then you can start exploring the stuff off planet that we have no proof for. But until then, let's focus on the stuff that we can prove. And that's what the whole purpose of this documentary is. And I know it's a massive undertaking, but I want to do it right. Hopefully we can put it on Amazon Prime and get it out there, released. I'm talking to other people. It's a big, ambitious project, but I'm doing it. So,
well, you guys did an amazing job with the Cahokia Mountains documentary, by the way. That documentary literally brought me to tears at multiple points because it was so well done. And it just blew my mind because obviously the ley lines was such a huge part of the the message and like healing the ley lines. And we had a brief conversation when he asked me about Montauk. He said, yeah, that's probably, scary going back there. Like maybe that wasn't good. But I told you about how we healed the ley line there.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I didn't even know, like, you're over here learning all this stuff about ley lines. Like, so it just shows me like we are like, that's the reason why it made me tear up. It wasn't like sadness. It was like joy. It's like we're remembering this ancient like knowledge that was stolen from us deliberately. And that's like so beautiful. Like it's so incredible. And that's what I think is like a positive note for us to leave on here is like, there's a lot of traumatic stories when it comes to these programs. Like obviously like, getting kidnapped when you're a child and stuff like that, like isn't fun. Isn't like it's a horror story, not like a fun story. But there's a lot of really beautiful transformation happening right now, a lot of healing. And, sometimes when you heal, it's a little irritating at first, but I think that's just like we're at, like you said, the preface, the very beginning. We may not be able to see the fruits of our labor. Other people might have to sit in the trees that we plant, in the future. But we're starting something here, and it's important, and we have to keep going. The rubber is meeting the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. And thank you for the kind words on the documentary. A few people said it made them cry. I was like, wow, like I had no idea. We were just putting this together. It took us years to put it together because of, COVID and all that stuff. But it was successful, and I'm excited to do another one. It's a lot of work, but
yeah, you guys definitely know how to make documentaries, and I hope that, like you said, it gets to the point where you can get it like on like Amazon Prime and these streaming services where people will just be farting around looking to watch something, and then they find your documentary, like
and then they find Journey to Truth, and then
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
well, and then it started off as a podcast. Now we're doing conferences, webinars, documentaries. It's like so much bigger than just the original idea. Like, hey, let's just record some conversations and throw it online, see if people listen. And it's blossomed into something beautiful. And I don't know where I'm going to be in the next couple of years, but I do see it, getting bigger and bigger. And not that was ever the goal, but I really am proud of what we created. And I think I'm just grateful. I should say I'm just grateful that I'm even blessed to be in this position where I can do this work and help everyone, help people,
Well, you're at the head of a movement, and thank you for the work. God bless.
Yeah, everybody definitely appreciates what you guys do, and opened up a lot of. It helps a lot of people. It really does. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I think we can wrap things up right now. Obviously, Tyler's show is Journey to Truth. Like, check it out. Like, watch the recent interview with Daryl. Sounds like it's relevant to the conversation.
We'll add links in the show notes, everybody.
Yeah, and just thanks so much for coming on our show. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of stuff on your plate, so yeah, we just really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And
thanks for having me. I was happy to do this, and I'm glad. We tried planning this a few times, and I'm glad it waited till now because
I think it happened at the perfect time because it's the first show with Brian. And I think we're really going to be able to elevate things and take things up to a notch. Because I'm sure, like when you have two heads, like you can kind of talk about like, oh, is this a good idea? Should we do this? Like,
right. Yeah.
It kind of
helps
have
things. Someone.
Yeah. And with the questions too, he's going to ask questions. I think he asked a lot of good questions today.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a great interview. And I look forward to the future. And hey, I'll see you at Journey to Truth conference next year. I'm going to be celebrating my birthday with you guys.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll see you then.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Tyler.
Take care.
God bless.
And